Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepless Scientist, a quiet little corner where curiosity moves slowly, like lantern light drifting across a calm lake. Tonight we'll be wandering into one of the most intimate landscapes you carry with you, a place built from memory, emotion, and imagination. It's the world of your dreams, those delicate tapestries your mind weaves when the waking world grows quiet. Before we begin this gentle journey, feel free to take a moment to settle in. Maybe dim the lights a little, or let the soft hum of your room become a kind of background lullaby. And if you'd like, you're always welcome to leave a comment letting me know where in the world you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. It's strangely comforting to imagine these quiet moments happening all across the globe, each of us winding down in our own corner of the night. When you're ready, let your breath soften, let your shoulders loosen, and allow the day to fall away, piece by piece, like sand slipping from your hands. We're in no hurry here, just let your thoughts drift, and together we'll step gently into the world behind your eyelids, the place where your mind becomes an artist working in the dark. Dreams often arrive without warning. One moment you're lying in bed, the rhythm of your breath settling into its nighttime cadence, and the next you find yourself walking through a corridor that never quite existed, or speaking to someone whose face is familiar and yet impossible. A dream doesn't ask for permission. It simply begins, like a curtain lifting in a theatre you didn't realize you'd entered. But what exactly is a dream? It's a question that sounds simple until you try to hold it still. A dream is not just a story or a memory, and it isn't merely imagination dressed in strange colours. It's a kind of inner landscape sculpted moment by moment from whatever your mind has at hand. The sensations of the day, the emotions you carried, the fragments of conversations you didn't pay attention to, even the quiet background hum of the world around you. All of it becomes paint on the canvas of the night. Scientists sometimes describe dreams as the result of spontaneous signals rising from deep in the brain, little sparks of electrical activity that the mind tries to interpret. But if you picture these sparks as small flickers of light, then the dream is the story your mind creates to make sense of them. Long ago, dream interpretation leaned heavily towards symbolism. Freud imagined dreams as coded messages from the unconscious, rich with disguised meanings, like letters written in invisible ink. There is something poetic about that idea, something comforting in the thought that every symbol carries a secret. But modern research, with its careful measurements and quiet observation, has shown that the truth may be a blend of many perspectives. There are indeed emotional echoes in your dreams, but there are also random elements, pieces of memory that don't belong together, scenes stitched together simply because they happen to bump into each other in the dark. The brain during sleep is far from silent. It continues to pulse with activity, but the priorities shift. The logical supervisor that keeps your thoughts organized during the day becomes quiet, almost as if it dimmed its lights for the night. Other areas brighten, especially those linked to emotion and imagery. It's as though the rational narrator steps aside, leaving the stage to the visual artists and the emotional storytellers. Without that steady narrator, dreams move freely, unbound by logic or consequence. They can shift from one place to another without explanation, because the part of your mind that normally demands explanations is resting. And yet, despite all their fluidity, dreams feel astonishingly real while they happen. Your mind doesn't treat them as imaginary. When you fall, your stomach seems to twist. When someone calls your name, it sounds as clear as if they were standing beside your bed. This vividness comes from a simple truth. When you dream, your brain uses many of the same pathways it uses when you're awake. The visual patterns you see in dreams come from the same regions that allow you to see the world around you. The emotions you feel travel through the same channels that carry your waking joys and fears. A dream is not a lesser version of reality. It is a reality built from within, using the same tools but freed from the constraints of the physical world. Of course, dreams can be gentle or chaotic, soothing or confusing. Sometimes they reflect your day with surprising clarity. Other times they mix truth with impossibility, offering landscapes where gravity feels optional or time moves in unpredictable ways. This blending is not a flaw. It's simply the mind working with what it has. Imagine a painter who begins with a single stroke of blue, then adds textures from memory, shapes from imagination, and light from a feeling rather than a lamp. That is how your brain dreams. It doesn't follow rules. It follows possibility. And perhaps the most fascinating part is that you often don't realize the dream has begun. There is no announcement, no clear dividing line. One moment is wakefulness. The next is the drifting threshold. And then suddenly you're somewhere else. A beach from your childhood, a room you've never seen, a conversation you've never had. The edges blur because dreaming is not a separate world. It is an extension of your mind made visible. If you listen closely to your own memories, you may recall dreams that felt like whispers of truth, or dreams that seemed to arrive simply to stir your imagination. You may have experienced dreams that lingered in the morning light, or dreams that disappeared the instant your eyes opened, dissolving like mist. All of these experiences are part of the same gentle machinery. Dreams are the mind's way of exploring itself, of reorganizing what you felt during the day, of testing ideas, or simply wandering through its own corridors. As we float a little deeper into this topic, the landscape of dreaming will begin to open. You'll see how the brain becomes an artist, how the day becomes paint, and how the night becomes a story crafted in silence. For now, simply rest in the understanding that a dream is not something happening to you. It is something you are quietly creating, even as your body sleeps. When you lie down at night and your thoughts begin to loosen their grip on the day, your mind doesn't simply switch off. Instead, it changes rhythm. The chatter of waking life fades into the background, and another kind of activity begins to rise, gentler in some ways, more untamed in others. Dreams are born inside this shift. They aren't pulled from nowhere. They're shaped by the quiet work of the brain, a collaboration between regions that usually stay in the shadows while you're awake. And though scientists give these regions long, complicated names, the way they behave during sleep feels almost artistic, like painters working in the half-light. To understand this quiet art, it helps to imagine the brain as a vast studio with different corners, each one specializing in its own kind of craft. During the day, the studio is bustling. The logical overseer is pacing near the front, keeping your thoughts in line, sorting, filtering, organizing. This supervisor is the part of your mind that asks questions like, does this make sense? Or, should I really say that out loud? But as sleep deepens, this supervisor dims its lantern, its voice softens, and with that gentle retreat, the other artists in the studio step forward. One of the first to stir is the memory keeper, a region nestled deep inside the brain. During the day, this part collects impressions like a librarian stacking books, snippets of conversation, the colour of someone's shirt, a sudden feeling of excitement or worry. All of it is tucked away for later. At night, this librarian begins to wander through the shelves, pulling books open, flipping through pages. Some pages belong together, others don't. Yet the brain doesn't hesitate to place them side by side, creating scenes where yesterday's commute blends with something you heard years ago, or where a forgotten childhood memory suddenly appears inside a place you've never been. This spontaneous mixing is not a mistake. It's the mind's way of making sense of what it has gathered. Nearby is the emotion lantern, a warm and sometimes unpredictable glow coming from the regions that shape your feelings. These emotional artists do not rest when the logical supervisor sleeps. In fact, they often burn brighter. Joy, fear, longing, frustration. Each emotion casts its own tint across the dreamscape. It's why a simple scene, like sitting at a table, can feel strangely serene or inexplicably heavy in a dream. The lantern of emotion colours everything, sometimes with subtle strokes, sometimes with sweeping tones. The reason dreams can feel so intensely real isn't just because the images are vivid, it's because the emotional signature is powerful. You're not just seeing a dream, you're feeling it. Then there is the imagination studio, tucked in the back of the brain, where images are shaped, textures added, and scenes illuminated. This region is normally busy when you're awake, helping you recognize faces, read expressions, or notice the curve of a tree against the sky. But during dream sleep, it becomes bolder. Instead of reflecting the outside world, it starts painting without reference, creating landscapes from memory, blending them with inventions and bringing to life shapes that could never exist under daylight. When you see a hallway stretching endlessly, or a mountain floating above the ground, it's this studio at play, painting with freedom. Supporting all of this is the quiet conductor deep in the brainstem, a region that doesn't produce images or emotions but sets the tempo. It releases small bursts of energy, almost like sparks travelling upward, awakening different parts of the studio in delicate waves. Scientists sometimes describe this process as bursts of electrical activity, but you can think of it more like a series of soft knocks on various doors, inviting the artist to wake and create. These pulses don't carry meaning on their own. They are simply gentle prompts. It is the rest of the brain that takes these signals and turns them into dreams. One of the most enchanting parts of this process is how these regions blend their strengths. The memory keeper may hand a piece of imagery to the imagination studio, which adds colour and shape. The emotion lantern may then bathe the scene in a particular feeling, and the conductor ensures all of them move together in a slow, coordinated rhythm. This collaboration is fluid, never rigid. Dreams don't follow blueprints, they follow currents. What makes this even more fascinating is that your mind builds dreams using the same networks it uses when you are awake. When you dream of someone's face, the region responsible for facial recognition during the day is active, quietly sketching from your memory. When you feel movement in a dream, your brain taps into the pathways it uses when you walk, run, or climb, even if your body lies perfectly still. This is why dreams carry such physical presence. Your mind is simulating movement using the same circuits that move you in waking life. It's like walking through an imaginary world with all the realism of a waking moment without ever leaving your bed. Of course, without the rational overseer keeping watch, these collaborations can take unexpected turns. Scenes shift abruptly because there is no one insisting they remain consistent. Characters appear without introduction because the brain doesn't pause to question their presence. A dream may stop in the middle of a sentence, leap into another scene, or dissolve into something entirely different. Yet within the dream, it all feels natural. This is the magic of the sleeping mind. It is free from the boundaries that waking life imposes. You might think of all this as a form of quiet creativity, not unlike the way an artist might allow their hand to move freely across a canvas, following instinct rather than plan. Dreams are born from this freedom. They are not rehearsed, not polished, not structured. They are spontaneous expressions of the mind as it sorts, reflects, and experiments. And the more deeply we understand how these quiet painters work, the more we appreciate just how intricate and alive the dreaming mind truly is. As we drift further into this exploration, the night opens even wider, revealing how memories, perceptions, and emotions weave together into patterns that feel intimate and strangely meaningful. For now, rest in the awareness that your dreams are crafted by these gentle artists working behind the scenes, shaping a world that belongs only to you every night, without fail. During the quiet hours of the night, when your breath has softened and the world around you has faded into stillness, your mind begins to sift through the remnants of the day. This gentle sorting doesn't feel deliberate. It doesn't announce itself or follow a strict order. Instead, it moves like a tide, gathering pieces of memory, emotion, and sensation, and pulling them into the drifting space where dreams begin to form. If you imagine your waking experiences as colours, then your dreams are the places where those colours blur, blend, and sometimes fold into entirely different shapes. Even the lightest moments of a day leave traces. The way someone smiled at you, the sound of a distant train, the faint scent of something baking nearby, the brief flutter of nervousness before a conversation. None of these feel dramatic on their own, and yet, when night arrives, your mind may reach for one of these small impressions as easily as an artist reaches for a brush. This is one of the reasons dreams sometimes feel familiar and strange at the same time. They borrow textures from reality, but they rearrange them in ways that no waking logic would allow. Scientists sometimes call this the continuity of experience, the idea that your dreams are stitched from the same cloth as your waking life. But instead of thinking of this as a rule or a theory, you might picture it more simply. Everything you encounter in a day adds to a quiet palette inside your mind. When you sleep, the artists of your dreaming brain dip into this palette, mixing what they find without any obligation to match the original world. A conversation from the morning might appear inside a dream set in a city you've never visited. A frustrating moment might resurface not through words but through a landscape that feels heavy or dim. A joyful memory might brighten a scene without ever appearing directly. Consider the simple experience of walking outside in the evening. You notice the sky turning a muted shade of orange, a breeze brushing your skin, the faint rustle of leaves. During the day, these impressions might barely linger, but when you fall asleep hours later, that soft orange may become part of a dream sky, or the sound of the leaves may reappear as the whisper of fabric or the hush of distant waves. The mind gathers impressions the way pockets gather sand, effortlessly and without intent. And later, in dreams, that sand becomes something entirely new. Emotions leave even stronger traces. An argument, a moment of pride, a laugh shared with someone you care about, a worry tucked into the back of your mind. These feelings seep into the subconscious more deeply than facts or tasks or errands. They are more vibrant, more enduring, and when dreams begin to form, these emotional tones can become the dominant colours. A dream doesn't need to recreate the moment that caused the emotion. It simply recreates the feeling itself, giving it shape and texture in whatever form the imagination chooses. You might dream of running across an uneven landscape, not because you exercised that day, but because you felt overwhelmed. Or you might dream of floating or flying, not because you saw anything related to flight, but because your heart felt unexpectedly light. There are even smaller influences that seep into dreams without you realizing it. A melody you heard hours ago might drift back as a background tune. A sentence someone said in passing may become dialogue inside the dream. A sensation, like the weight of your blanket or the coolness of your pillow, might weave itself into the dream as the warmth of sunlight or the feel of a gentle breeze. Even your body's internal rhythms, the beating of your heart, the rise and fall of your breath can influence the pace and tone of a dream without ever appearing as literal images. External sounds can slip through the boundaries as well. A car horn, a dog barking, rain against the window. These may enter the dream in ways that transform them into entirely different meanings. Instead of hearing rain, you might find yourself walking through a forest glistening with dew. Instead of hearing a distant sound, you might dream that someone is calling your name. Your brain doesn't simply insert sounds directly. It blends them into the story it's creating, like a composer adjusting the instruments in a soft, drifting piece of music. Sometimes the influences are subtle, sometimes they're unmistakable. If you spent hours studying, you might dream of symbols or shapes that resemble what you saw during the day, even if your brain rearranges them into scenes that make no sense at all. If you watched a film, fragments of it may appear in a dream, but altered, softened, or merged with unrelated memories. The mind is not trying to recreate your day, it's trying to process it, to file it away, to explore it from new angles. Dreams are part of that quiet work. What makes this blending so fascinating is how personal it is. Two people can experience the same event, but their dreams afterward will be entirely different. One person may dream of water, another of walking through a familiar street, another of a room that shifts shape with every step. This is because each mind carries its own palette, its own emotional tone, its own history. Even the subconscious has a unique accent. Sometimes dreams reflect what we consciously noticed, but just as often they reveal what we overlooked. A fleeting worry may return as a symbolic moment, or a hint of excitement may reappear as movement or colour. Dreams reveal the silent weight of things we didn't put into words. They show us what the mind chose to hold on to, even when we didn't realise it had kept anything at all. As we drift a little further into this journey, the picture becomes clearer. Dreams aren't random. They're not chaotic in the way they first appear. They're woven from the colours of your days, mixed with the textures of your feelings, shaped by the quiet logic of the sleeping mind. They're your inner world rearranging itself in delicate, ever-changing patterns. For now, simply rest in the understanding that dreams come from you, not from nowhere, not from some distant mystery, but from the moments, impressions, and emotions that linger quietly beneath the surface. Each night your mind paints with the colours of your day, creating scenes only you could dream. As the night unfolds, your mind does not drift in a single direction. Instead, it moves through a series of gentle stages, each with its own rhythm, its own purpose, and its own way of cradling your thoughts. Sleep is often imagined as a simple descent, like closing a door behind you. But in truth, it's more like wandering through a house made of shifting rooms, quiet stairways, and soft, echoing halls. And in each room, the mind behaves a little differently. To understand how dreams emerge and why they take the shapes they do, it helps to walk through this house slowly, letting each step reveal something new. The first stage is the lightest. You hover between wakefulness and sleep, still aware of the world around you but beginning to detach from it. This is the moment when your thoughts loosen into fragments, when ideas slip through your mind in short, dreamlike flashes. You might see shapes that dissolve as soon as they appear, or you might feel a sudden jolt, as if you were stepping off a small ledge. That familiar falling sensation, the one that pulls you awake for a breath, is just your nervous system adjusting, momentarily misinterpreting the shift between worlds. Scientists sometimes describe this as a brief misfire of the body's settling signals, but in softer terms, you can simply think of it as the mind letting go a little unevenly, like a boat rocking before it fully drifts. Soon after, you slip into a deeper form of light sleep, the world fades further, your breathing steadies, your muscles relax. If someone calls your name, you might still wake, but your mind no longer feels tethered to every sound. This is where the brain begins to create small protective ripples, little bursts of quiet electrical activity that help shield you from noises or movements that would otherwise pull you back to wakefulness. You don't feel these ripples, and they don't appear as anything dramatic in the experience of sleep, but you can imagine them as gentle waves rising to guard the shoreline of your rest, smoothing away disturbances before they reach you. Most of the night, you will return to this stage again and again. It is the steady heartbeat of sleep, the place where your mind floats without deep dreaming, but without waking either. It's a kind of waiting room, calm and unhurried, preparing you for what comes next. Then comes the deep ocean. This stage of sleep is slow, steady, and quiet in a way that waking life rarely allows. Your brain begins to produce long, sweeping waves of activity that resemble the rhythmic movement of tides. These waves wash through the mind, repairing, reorganizing, and strengthening the delicate networks that support your memory and physical health. If the earlier stages were like soft stairways, this one is more like resting at the bottom of a warm, silent pool. Your thoughts fade into a kind of darkness that is not frightening but restorative. You are held, you are still. Even dreams behave differently here. Instead of vivid imagery, the mind produces faint impressions, flashes of thought, or drifting emotional tones, shadows rather than scenes. This deep sleep is what gives you the strength to face the next day. It helps your muscles recover, your immune system recharge, and your memory settle into steadier patterns. Some people describe waking from deep sleep too soon as feeling disoriented or heavy, and that's because the body and mind are reluctant to leave this sanctuary. It is in many ways the most essential room in the house of sleep. But the moment the mind begins to climb back upward, returning from this underwater stillness, something extraordinary happens. The boundaries of thought begin to ripple, the imagination stirs, the emotional centers glow faintly. And slowly, as the mind enters the stage called dream sleep, the theatre opens. Dream sleep, often known by its scientific label, rapid eye movement sleep, is where the mind becomes brilliantly active again, almost as active as when you are awake. But the activity is different. It is more fluid, more untethered, as though the mind has been given the freedom to roam. During this stage, your eyes move beneath your lids, tracing invisible paths, while your body remains still, gently protected by a system that quiets your muscles. This temporary stillness is not a sign of danger. It's a safety measure, a built-in pause designed to keep your body from acting out the movements of your dreams. Inside the mind, however, movement is everywhere. Colours sharpen, scenes take shape, memories float into view and blend seamlessly with imagination. The emotional lantern burns brighter, casting some dreams in warmth and others in tension. You may find yourself walking through a place you've never been, or speaking to someone who feels familiar even though their face keeps shifting. You may feel weightless, or chased, or comforted without understanding why. This shifting, fluid world reflects the mind's freedom during dream sleep. Logic steps aside. Creativity takes the lead. What's remarkable is that you cycle through all these stages over and over again each night, moving from light sleep to deep sleep to dream sleep in patterns that resemble quiet loops. The first dream cycles of the night are often short, almost like brief sketches. But as the hours pass, these dream cycles lengthen. By the early hours of morning, your dream stages are richer, more vivid, sometimes stretching across long internal landscapes. This is why the dreams you remember most often come just before waking. Every part of this architecture has a purpose. The light stages help you ease into rest. The deep stages repair and reset the mind. The dream stages allow the emotional and imaginative parts of you to explore, reorganize, and express themselves in ways waking life rarely permits. Sleep isn't one thing, it is a balance of roles, each one contributing to the quiet maintenance of the self. As you drift from one stage to another, your dreams gather material from your day, mix it with feelings you carried inside, and shape it into stories that unfold without rules. This architecture, the drifting doorways, the deep pools, the bright theatres, is what makes dreaming possible. And as we move gently onward in this exploration, the picture will grow even clearer, revealing how emotions, memories, and the architecture of sleep work together to build the dreams that feel so strangely alive. As evening slips into night and the world grows quieter around you, something subtle begins to stir beneath the surface of your awareness. Long before dreams take shape, before images soften into place or memories drift into new combinations, the emotional part of your mind begins its own quiet work. It doesn't wait for the moment you fall asleep. It doesn't need permission. It simply moves, gently yet persistently, gathering the feelings you've carried through the day like glowing embers waiting to be tended. This is the emotional furnace, a place where your mind warms, softens, and reshapes the experiences you've felt long after you've stopped paying attention to them. All day long, emotions rise and fall inside you, sometimes so quickly you barely notice. A brief moment of irritation, a flash of joy, a sigh of relief, a wave of anxiety that passes before you can name it. Even the quieter emotions, the ones that hover at the edges, leave their marks. And when the lights dim and sleep begins its slow approach, your mind returns to these traces, not to relive them exactly as they were, but to process them in its own mysterious wordless way. During dreaming sleep, the emotional centers of the brain become brighter and more active, as though someone had opened a window and let warm light fill the room. The part of your mind that feels worry, affection, frustration, longing, or excitement becomes more sensitive, more expressive, more curious. Meanwhile, the part of your mind that normally manages these emotions, the rational, steady presence that tells you it's all right, or let's think about this carefully, settles into rest, its voice barely audible. With the rational overseer quiet, emotions take on a new life. They flow more freely. They colour your dreams in ways you may not consciously recognise but always feel. This is one reason every night has its own emotional texture. A peaceful day might lead to dreams that feel calm, floating, or quietly expansive. A stressful one might bring dreams filled with tension or hurried movement, even if nothing frightening appears. The emotional tone of your day doesn't stay behind when you fall asleep. It follows you into the dark, and your mind begins to rework it with the tools available: imagery, movement, symbolism, and sensation. Imagine, for instance, a day when something unsettled you, an unfinished conversation, a task that didn't go as planned, a disagreement that left you with a tightness in your chest. You may not think about these moments as you drift towards sleep, and yet your mind hasn't forgotten them. In your dreams, they may reappear not as a literal replay, but as a strange landscape that feels too steep, or a room that seems too crowded, or a journey that keeps shifting just as you think you understand it. Your mind isn't trying to frighten you. It's trying to work with the emotion, stretching it, exploring it, turning it over in its hands the way one might examine a smooth stone pulled from a pocket. On the other hand, if you carry joy with you, something small but bright, a sense of connection, pride, or hope, your dreams may take on a warm, expansive quality. Colours may seem softer, movements may feel fluid, characters in your dream may be kinder or more familiar. You may find yourself wandering through places that feel open and comforting. The emotional furnace does not discriminate between good and bad. It simply takes the heat of your feelings and uses it to warm the dreamscape. Some dreams are so charged with emotion that they wake you. Others feel deeply significant even when the story makes no sense at all. This happens because emotions in dreams are not restricted by the filters of waking thought. Without those filters, feelings rise to the surface more easily. You might find yourself crying in a dream not because of something that happened, but because the emotional tone resonates with something unspoken inside you. Or you may feel calm and grounded in a dream during a stressful period in life, as though your mind is offering you a moment of peace that waking life could not. Interestingly, dreaming sleep also softens strong emotional memories. When the mind revisits a difficult moment in a dream, the emotional intensity is often reduced, as if someone had taken a piece of sandpaper and gently smoothed the roughest edges. In this state, stress-related chemicals quiet down, allowing the emotional centers to replay memories without overwhelming you. If you've ever woken from a dream feeling strangely relieved about something that once troubled you, this subtle emotional processing may be why. Your mind is not only expressing emotion during dreams, it is trying to regulate it. This can happen with joy as well. Sometimes dreams elongate positive moments, replaying them or reshaping them into comforting scenes, almost as if to keep their warmth alive a little longer. The emotional furnace doesn't only deal with burdens, it tends to blessings too. There are mornings when you wake up feeling that your dreams have carried a weight, even if you cannot recall their details. And there are other mornings when you rise feeling unexpectedly lighter, as though something inside you shifted during sleep, even though you never consciously noticed it. None of this is accidental. The dreaming mind is always tending to the emotional fire, adjusting it, redistributing the warmth, making sure it doesn't burn too hot or fade too far. Not every emotion that influences a dream is dramatic. Often, the gentle ones, contentment, curiosity, subtle longing, shape dreams more quietly than we realize. A dream may not seem emotional at first glance, but the tone of it, the way it moves, the way its characters behave, the way its colors feel, often speaks directly to how the heart was feeling, even when the mind wasn't paying attention. As we drift a little further into the world of dreams, the role of emotion becomes clearer. Dreams are not random storms of imagery. They are woven from the threads of how you felt, openly or secretly throughout the day. Every night the emotional furnace glows, using its warmth to illuminate the paths your dreams will take. And whether the night brings comfort or reflection, stillness or intensity, the process is always quietly working for your sake, helping you carry your emotional world with a little more balance into the day that follows. There is a moment, hovering somewhere between dreaming and waking, where the world feels unusually thin, a place where the mind seems alert, or almost alert, yet the body remains quiet and unmoving, as though it still belongs to the realm of sleep. This threshold, delicate and strange, is where sleep, paralysis sometimes appears, and although the experience can feel unsettling when it arrives uninvited, its roots are gentle, biological, and surprisingly thoughtful. It is your brain's way of keeping you safe while your dreams continue their silent work. To understand this strange stillness, it helps to imagine the stages of sleep as a series of drifting layers. Dream sleep, the stage where imagery becomes vivid and emotions bloom into stories, comes with a built-in safety feature. During this stage, the mind sends signals throughout the body that soften muscle activity, almost like dimming the lights in a room. This quieting is deliberate. It keeps your arms from flailing as you move through imagined landscapes and prevents your legs from acting out running or climbing. Without this gentle inhibition, your sleeping body would try to follow the adventures of your dreams, and sleep would be far less peaceful. This calming mechanism is delicate, like a soft blanket placed over your muscles. It isn't harsh or forceful, it simply slows the body's responses, creating a space where the mind is free to roam without pulling the body along. For most people, this shift begins and ends so smoothly that they never notice it. You drift into dream sleep, your body becomes still, and then you drift back out, all without remembering the transition. But sometimes, the timing becomes slightly misaligned. The body may remain in its restful stillness while the mind begins to rise toward wakefulness. In those moments, awareness returns before movement does. You might sense the room around you, feel your breath, hear distant sounds, and yet find your muscles quiet, as if the night still holds them. This is sleep paralysis, not a malfunction, not a danger, but simply a temporary overlap of two states, dreaming and waking, each following its own gentle rhythm. In this space, dreams and reality can bleed into one another. The mind, still tinged with the colours of dream sleep, may project shapes or sounds into the room, blurring the edges between imagination and perception. These are known as threshold images, delicate visual echoes that arise when the dreaming part of the mind has not yet fully dimmed. You might see the silhouette of someone standing at the edge of your vision, or feel the sense of a presence, or hear a sound that seems to drift from nowhere. These impressions are not signs of something external. They are simply dream fragments arriving early, like petals drifting through a half-open door. Long ago, before sleep science offered gentle explanations, people created stories to make sense of these sensations. Some imagined spirits pressing on their chests, or visitors from unseen worlds. Others believed they were glimpsing something supernatural. These stories were heartfelt attempts to explain an experience that feels both vivid and strange. But today, with a kinder understanding of the mind, we can see sleep paralysis for what it is. Harmless and temporary moment where the dreaming brain lingers a little too long. It's important to remember that during sleep paralysis, even though the body is still, the ability to breathe remains steady. The systems that guide your heartbeat and your breath continue without interruption, following rhythms that never truly rest. What feels like heaviness is simply the body's natural quieting at the end of dream sleep, a lingering softness rather than an actual restriction. And the moment the rest of your mind catches up, the spell fades. Movement returns like a tide flowing back to the shore. Some people experience these threshold states only once or twice in their lives. Others encounter them more often, especially during periods of stress, irregular sleep schedules, or moments when the mind is holding too much. The frequency does not reflect anything unusual or alarming. It simply means that the balance between dreaming and waking is shifting more abruptly than normal, like a dancer stepping onto the stage a little ahead of the music. Interestingly, these threshold states offer a glimpse into how delicate and complex the architecture of sleep truly is. They show us how finely tuned the system must be to allow vivid dreaming while preventing the body from acting out those dreams. They also reveal how easily a single moment can capture both worlds, the vivid inner landscape of the dream and the faint awareness of the waking room. It is rare in daily life to feel such a layered experience, and although it may startle you when it first arrives, it is simply the mind's way of passing through the doorway too quickly. There is another threshold experience closely related to sleep paralysis. It occurs just as dreams are beginning to form, in that drifting moment when the waking world starts to blur. These early images, soft shapes, distant voices, gentle patterns, are known as hypnagogic impressions. They arrive like fragments of a dream that hasn't fully started. You might see colours shifting behind your eyes, or hear a voice that fades before you understand its words. These impressions are not hallucinations in the frightening sense. They are the earliest brushstrokes of the dream, appearing before the rest of the canvas is filled in. There is also the opposite state, the one that comes just as you awaken. In these moments, dream images may linger in the room for a breath or two, like fog that hasn't fully lifted. Scientists sometimes give these states technical names, but in softer terms, they are simply echoes, dreams dissolving a little more slowly than usual. They may feel strange, but they are as natural as the fading of a melody after the last note is played. What makes these threshold states so intriguing is how gracefully they reveal the mind's transitions. You're not stepping from one world to another in an instant. You are gliding, sometimes smoothly, sometimes a little unevenly, through layers of awareness, and occasionally your mind pauses in the thin space between, not to frighten you, not to trap you, but simply because these systems, though beautifully coordinated, are deeply complex. As we continue this journey through the dreaming mind, these threshold states remind us that sleep is not a single experience, but a spectrum of states, all shifting and blending. And in the quiet spaces where they overlap, you glimpse the delicate choreography behind your dreams, the stillness, the stirrings, the soft misalignments that reveal just how intricate the night's work truly is. When you listen closely to the way people describe their dreams, you may notice something curious. Some speak of dream worlds painted in intense colours, full of movement and emotion. Others say their dreams feel softer, quieter, or more fragile, like thin threads that dissolve with morning light. Some people remember dreams almost every night, while others awaken with only a faint impression, as if the dream had slipped through their fingers before they could notice it. These differences can seem mysterious at first, as though each person has been given a private doorway into a unique kind of inner night. But beneath these variations lies a gentle truth. The style of your dreaming mind is shaped, in part, by the biology you inherited and the patterns your brain naturally follows. Biology does not dictate your dreams in a rigid or deterministic way. It is more like the grain in a piece of wood or the natural curvature of a leaf, a quiet influence, a starting point, a subtle tilt rather than a fixed rule. To understand this influence, imagine the brain not as a single organ, but as a vast landscape of rhythms and chemicals that help coordinate your thoughts, your feelings, and your sleep. Each person's landscape is slightly different. Its slopes, its pathways, its natural patterns of activity. And these differences guide not only how deeply you sleep, but how vividly you see, feel, and recall the dreams that unfold within you. Consider the simple question of dream recall. Some people wake from a dream with images still glowing in their minds, as clear as if they had walked through them. Others awaken with only the faintest trace, or nothing at all. Researchers have found that this difference is often linked to how sensitive certain parts of the brain are to awakening. People who are naturally light sleepers, or who have brains that pay closer attention to small sounds, are more likely to wake briefly during the night. These small awakenings create moments when a dream can be transferred into memory. Without that pause, without that momentary return to awareness, dreams often dissolve before they can be stored. The biology guiding this process is subtle, shaped by the balance of your brain's alertness systems, some of which are influenced by the blueprint written quietly within your genes. Vividness too has its roots in gentle biological patterns. The chemicals that guide your sleep cycles, tiny messengers moving between neurons, help determine how bright or soft your dream images appear. One of these messengers, often associated with sharper imagery, acts like a painter's brightening glaze. When its level rise during dream sleep, scenes may become more vibrant, detailed, or emotionally rich. Other messengers, the ones that make thinking feel steady and logical when you're awake, tend to take a step back during dreaming. When they quiet down, dreams become fluid and less bound to reality. The exact balance of these internal messengers differs slightly from person to person, creating unique dream textures that feel almost like personal handwriting. Emotional intensity in dreams also follows these biological currents. Some people experience dreams with strong emotional undertones: fear, excitement, longing, joy, while others drift through calmer landscapes. Part of this variation comes from how responsive the emotional centers of the brain are. These centers, shaped by both experience and inherited tendencies, can run either hotter or quieter at night. If someone's emotional landscape is naturally more sensitive, their dreams may carry deeper feeling, even if nothing dramatic happens within the storyline. If their emotional centers remain more steady, their dreams may take on a gentler, more distant quality. Even the frequency of certain dream themes, like flying, falling, or being chased, has roots in subtle patterns of nervous system activity. People whose bodies carry more tension during the day sometimes show more movement-related symbols in dreams, while those with naturally calmer nervous systems may experience more static or contemplative dream scenes. These tendencies are not absolute, nor are they unchangeable. They shift with life experiences, stress levels, sleep habits, and emotional states. But beneath all these shifting factors lies a quieter biological foundation that shapes how dreams tend to unfold. There are even gentle hereditary influences on lucid dreaming. Some people find it easy to realize they are dreaming, to step into that rare moment of awareness within the dream world. Others may struggle to reach that threshold no matter how often they try. These differences seem to arise from the natural strength of the brain's self-reflective network, the system that helps you recognize your own thoughts and monitor your awareness. When this network stays slightly more active during sleep, which it tends to do in certain individuals, lucid dreams come more easily. Again, this is not destiny. It's a predisposition, a tilt toward a certain kind of inner clarity. Biology also shapes the body's rhythms of sleep itself. Some people drift slowly into deep sleep and rise into dreaming sleep with gentle transitions. Others move through these cycles more sharply, with quicker shifts between stages. These variations influence the architecture of the night, how long dream periods last, how often they recur, how intense they feel. And while these rhythms are influenced by habits, lifestyle, and environment, they are rooted in a biological tempo that each person carries quietly within them. But even with all these influences, it's essential to remember that no part of this is fixed. Biology sets the frame, but life fills in the canvas. The content of your dreams, the stories, the characters, the emotions belongs to your experiences, your memories, your hopes, and your fears. Genetics may shape how easily you enter a dream, how vividly you see it, or how much of it you remember, but it does not tell your dreams what to be. It only provides the brush, not the painting. As we move deeper into the night's mysteries, it becomes clear that dreaming is a dialogue between the biological and the personal, between the rhythms you inherited and the life you are living. Your dreams are shaped by who you are, but also by who you have been and who you are becoming. And through this gentle interplay, each night offers you a world that no one else can see, a world drawn from the palette of your biology, illuminated by the lantern of your emotion and shaped by the stories you carry. There are moments in sleep so delicate that they feel almost impossible. Moments where something inside you stirs with a quiet certainty, as if a small lantern has been lit in the fog of a drifting world. This is the beginning of lucid dreaming, the rare and gentle experience of becoming aware that you are dreaming while the dream continues to unfold around you. It doesn't arrive with a shout nor with the dramatic shift one might imagine. Instead, it often slips in softly, like noticing a familiar scent in an unfamiliar room, or realizing that the light in a hallway looks just a little too golden to be real. And in that quiet recognition, this is a dream. A new kind of clarity begins to glow. Lucid dreams can happen unexpectedly. You may be walking through a place that feels partly familiar and partly impossible. A street with buildings shaped just slightly differently than they should be. Or you may be speaking with someone whose face changes each time you blink, though you don't feel alarmed. Then, without warning, a small thought rises, gentle but undeniable. This doesn't follow the rules of waking life. Something is off, but in a soft, dreamlike way. The moment that thought forms, something shifts. The dream does not break. The world does not vanish. Instead, you simply become aware of yourself inside it, as though slipping into a slightly more illuminated version of the same scene. Some people describe their first lucid moment as a quiet gasp without sound, a sudden sense of standing at the threshold between two states. Others describe it as a kind of emotional widening, a soft excitement spreading through the chest as they realize they are both inside the dream and watching it unfold. Sometimes, lucidity grows gradually, like fog thinning as morning light rises. Other times it flickers into existence suddenly, like a lighthouse beam sweeping across the ocean. But in every case, the sensation is unmistakable. A sleeping mind has opened its eyes from within. What makes this experience even more fascinating is how the brain behaves during these moments. When a person becomes lucid, a small area of the mind associated with reflection and decision-making begins to glow again. Softly, not with the full brightness of waking life, but enough to offer clarity. Scientists see this in imaging studies as a gentle reawakening of the brain's self-awareness networks, like a dim lamp turning back on in a quiet room. This soft return of awareness doesn't break the dream. Instead, it brings a gentle steadiness to it, allowing the dreamer to witness their surroundings with new eyes. This phenomenon is rare enough to feel magical, yet common enough that many people have experienced it at least once. Perhaps you have too. You may recall a dream in which you suddenly thought, "This isn't real." Yet the dream continued as though it were an interactive painting. You may remember trying to fly or testing whether you could pass your hand through a wall, or simply standing still in the dreamscape, amazed by its vividness. Even if the moment lasted only a few breaths, it often leaves a lasting impression, a memory that feels both dreamlike and strangely grounded. Lucid dreams vary widely from person to person. For some, lucidity lasts only a heartbeat before slipping away, like a bubble bursting the moment you notice it. For others, lucidity expands into longer experiences, allowing them to walk calmly through their dream worlds. Some people can gently influence their surroundings, shaping the dream like soft clay. Others simply observe, letting the dream move of its own accord while holding onto the awareness that they are dreaming. Often, the first lucid moments occur during dreams that are already unusual or emotionally charged. A sudden impossibility, a pink sky, a face that transforms, a staircase that loops back into itself, can trigger lucidity. But sometimes the trigger is subtle, a strange detail in a room, or the feeling that something about the scene doesn't match your memory. And occasionally, lucidity arises from a sensation rather than an image. You might suddenly feel weightless, or as though gravity has loosened its grip, and this sensation alone may be enough for the mind to whisper, "I'm dreaming." There are also stories of lucid dreams beginning in the quiet space between sleep and waking. You might find yourself lying in bed within the dream itself, recognizing that your surroundings are not quite accurate. A window may appear where none exists, or the light may shine from an impossible direction. In these moments, the mind begins to hover between states, aware enough to question, but still immersed enough to remain inside the dream. This is often one of the gentlest forms of lucidity, soft, drifting, almost like floating in a shallow pool. Not every lucid dream is dramatic or filled with exhilarating discovery. Some are quiet and contemplative. In these dreams, lucidity might feel like sitting beside a calm lake, watching the water ripple without needing to touch it. You become aware not to control but simply to be present. In fact, many seasoned lucid dreamers describe their most cherished lucid dreams as the ones where nothing happens, where they simply stand in the dream, breathing, taking in the colours and textures, fully aware yet completely at peace. Lucid dreams often carry an emotional undertone that lingers long after waking. People commonly describe feelings of gentle awe, gratitude, or wonder. Some speak of a deep sense of clarity, as though they briefly stepped into a version of the mind where everything feels unhurried and transparent. Others feel a sense of connection, to themselves, to their imagination, or to a quiet part of their inner world they rarely visit during the day. Even if lucid moments are rare, their presence reveals something quietly profound. The mind is capable of awakening from within itself. Awareness is not something tied strictly to daylight or physical surroundings. It is a small flame that can rekindle even in the deepest parts of sleep, reminding you that your consciousness has many layers, many states, and many ways of knowing itself. As we continue deeper into this journey, through the dream world and the soft boundaries of awareness, you'll begin to see that lucidity is not an interruption of dreaming, but a doorway, a gentle opening into a more participatory relationship with your inner world, one that invites curiosity rather than control. Whether it lasts a second or an entire scene, it is a quiet gift, a reminder that the dreaming mind is not only a storyteller, but also a witness. Lucid dreaming is often spoken about as though it were a secret gift, something rare, mysterious and out of reach. But in truth, the seeds of lucidity are planted in everyone. They lie quietly within your nightly rhythms, waiting for moments when awareness drifts a little closer to the surface of the dream. You don't need force, discipline, or anything resembling training. What you need is softness. A way of approaching your dream life with the same gentleness you might use when handling a fragile piece of paper or watching a candle flicker in the dark. And with that softness, the doorway to lucidity becomes far more welcoming than you might imagine. One of the simplest ways to invite lucid moments is through a quiet habit known as reality checking. This phrase can sound structured or rigid, but it doesn't need to be. Think of it instead as asking the world a small, curious question from time to time. During the day, you might take a moment to notice how the light falls on the object around you, or gently ask yourself, "Am I dreaming right now?" Not with suspicion, but with childlike wonder. You aren't challenging the world, you're simply acknowledging that your mind can occupy many states, and this one, right now, happens to be waking life. Over time, this small habit can drift into your dream world. When something strange happens, a doorway that leads somewhere unexpected, a familiar face in an impossible place, you may find that the same questioning whisper rises, "Could this be a dream?" And in the moment the question appears, clarity often follows. Another gentle tool is a practice that dream researchers like to call setting an intention, though in the context of sleep, it feels more like planting a tiny seed before nightfall. as you settle into bed, you might quietly remind yourself of your wish to notice when you are dreaming. You don't need to repeat it like a ritual or concentrate hard. A simple, soft thought is enough. Something like, if I dream tonight, I'd like to remember. The mind, especially the dreaming mind, responds well to intentions spoken without pressure, like a friend responding to a whisper rather than a demand. This technique, often given a long name in scientific literature, can be understood more naturally as a gentle suggestion to the self, nothing more. There is also a pathway into lucidity that flows through the natural rhythms of sleep. Sometimes, if you awaken in the early morning and then drift back to sleep soon after, your mind re-enters the dream world more quickly than usual. In this return, awareness occasionally lingers at the threshold, allowing you to step into the dream already half awake. You might think of this as walking back into a theatre while the performance is already underway, except this time you enter with a lantern lit. This soft re-entry is one reason why many lucid dreams occur near dawn, when dream cycles are longer and the mind is already hovering near wakefulness. Dream journaling too can serve as a lantern in the night, though its purpose is often misunderstood. You don't need to record every detail of a dream, nor do you need to analyze it deeply. The simple act of writing down even a few fragments, a color, a sensation, a setting, quietly strengthens the bridge between your waking mind and your dreaming self. When you jot down a dream upon waking, you're teaching your mind that dreams matter, that they are part of your story. And when the mind believes this, it begins offering you more. You may find that dreams become easier to recall, that their images stay with you longer, or that lucidity visits you with greater frequency. Not because you forced anything, but because you paid attention. If journaling feels overwhelming, you can approach it with softness. Write down only the moments that feel like they glow a little brighter. A dream about walking through a familiar place. A dream with an unusual colour. A dream filled with quiet emotion. Even a single sentence can act as a thread, helping you weave your dreaming and waking selves together. There is a common belief that lucid dreaming requires intense effort or complicated techniques, but the truth is far simpler. Lucidity blossoms in the same environment where dreams are born, in a place of openness, curiosity, and gentle awareness. The more softly you approach the idea of lucid dreaming, the more naturally it may find you. Harsh expectations, rigid routines, or attempts at control often push lucidity further away, like trying to catch a butterfly with too much force. But a calm attitude, a light touch, and a quiet willingness to explore can bring it near. Even small changes in how you relate to your dreams can shift the landscape. If you treat dreams as meaningful, your mind will send them forward more clearly. If you approach sleep with a sense of curiosity rather than obligation, lucidity may drift closer of its own accord. And if you weave tiny moments of mindfulness into your day, pausing to breathe, noticing the light, observing your thoughts without judgment, those same qualities often follow you into the dream world. For many people, the path to lucid dreaming opens not through effort, but through surrender. The mind, when given space, knows how to awaken within itself. Lucid moments are not something you seize, they are something you allow. And the tools described here, reality checking, intention setting, gentle re-entry into dreams, journaling, are simply ways of clearing a path. They do not command the dream, they merely invite it. There is also a deeper reason these soft practices work. Your dreaming mind is always listening, always observing the patterns of your thoughts. When you carry a calm awareness into your day, when you move through your waking hours with even a small thread of presence, that presence becomes part of your inner landscape, and the dreaming mind, which builds its worlds from the materials you give it, eventually begins to weave that presence into its creations. That is where lucid dreams begin, not in techniques or strategies, but in the slow merging of your waking clarity and your sleeping imagination. As we drift deeper into the fabric of the night, the idea of becoming an architect within your dreams begins to feel less like a distant skill and more like a natural extension of your inner world. Lucid dreaming is not an escape or a performance. It is an invitation to witness your dreamscape with open eyes and an open heart. And as we move onward, we will explore how this awareness can shape the dream world gently, through intention, through breath, and through the quiet creativity that lives inside every dreamer. When lucidity settles into a dream, whether for a heartbeat or for a long wandering scene, it brings with it a quiet gift. You become both participant and witness, both the figure walking through the dream and the soft consciousness watching from within. And in that space, something subtle becomes possible. Not control in the forceful sense, and not command, but a kind of gentle shaping. A way of guiding the dream as though you were smoothing the surface of water with your fingertips. This delicate influence is where the art of dream navigation begins. The first moment after realizing that you are dreaming can be filled with a trembling kind of excitement. Many people describe a sudden rush, like an inner breeze lifting through the chest. But this excitement, if left unchecked, often wakes the dreamer. Awareness becomes too sharp, and the dream dissolves like mist touched by sunlight. So the very first principle of shaping a lucid dream is simply to breathe. A deep, slow breath, real or imagined, can anchor you inside the dream, grounding you gently in the scene. In this way, breath becomes a bridge. It reminds the dream that you are present but calm, allowing it to steady itself around you. Touch is another way to stabilize a lucid moment. In waking life, touch helps you orient yourself, feeling the texture of fabric, the coolness of a surface, the warmth of your own skin. In a lucid dream, touch works similarly. Placing your hand on a wall, brushing your fingers over the shape of a tree, or feeling the ground beneath your feet can strengthen the dream's clarity. It tells the dreaming mind, I am here, and this world has weight, and the world responds by becoming more vivid, even if the texture changes unexpectedly, as dream textures often do. The act of touching anchors your presence. Once the dream becomes steady, the landscape opens for exploration. Some dreamers find that setting a quiet intention allows the dream to shift accordingly. If you wish to walk through a forest, you don't need to force the world to rearrange. You might simply turn toward a path and expect it to lead somewhere green and quiet. If you wish to fly, you don't need to leap upward with effort. You can think of rising as lightly as a leaf caught in an updraft and let the dream guide you upward. These subtle expectations, formed without strain, often shape the dream far more effortlessly than deliberate commands. Changing scenery in a lucid dream can also be done with gentle metaphors. If you wish to step into a new place, you can open a door, turn a corner, walk through a curtain of light, or ride an elevator whose floors shift into different worlds. The dream understands symbolic transitions intuitively. It welcomes metaphor. It moves with suggestion rather than pressure. A door in a lucid dream is not merely a door, it is a possibility, an opening into whatever landscape your imagination leans toward. There are moments when a dream carries tension, when the emotional furnace from earlier in the night spills traces of fear, frustration, or unease into the dreamscape. In these moments, lucidity becomes a kind of lantern. The simple awareness that you're dreaming can dissolve the heaviness, not by banishing it, but by transforming it. A looming figure may shrink when looked at with clarity. A dark hallway may brighten when approached with calm curiosity. Some dreamers like to imagine holding a small light in their hands, illuminating the scene. Others prefer to breathe gently until the tension softens. In many cases, the moment you acknowledge the dream as a dream, its darker tones begin to fade on their own, like the last notes of a storm cloud drifting away. Lucid dreaming also offers a unique space for creativity, not in the sense of forced invention, but in the sense of allowing the mind to reveal its hidden worlds. Some people use lucid dreams to explore ideas, to visualize projects, or to discover solutions that eluded them during the day. In these moments, the dreaming mind becomes a quiet studio where your imagination is free to roam without the constraints of logic or expectation. The clarity of lucidity allows you to wander through these creative spaces with intention, while the dream's fluid nature fills in the details. Emotional resolution can also arise within lucid dreams, though it happens gently, not as an effort to solve anything, but as a natural consequence of awareness meeting emotion. You may find yourself speaking to someone from your past, not for closure in the waking sense, but to let a feeling express itself in a safe internal world. Or you may revisit a scene that once felt unresolved, only to experience it through calm eyes. The dreaming mind, when met with awareness, becomes extraordinarily compassionate, offering moments of insight without judgment. Still, shaping dreams is not about forcing outcomes or chasing elaborate goals. Dreams resist pressure. They respond to ease. When dreamers try too hard, trying to fly, trying to change the world, trying to command the scene, the dream often slips away, or the lucidity fades. But when they move gently, with curiosity rather than expectation, the dream often opens like a flower in slow bloom. This gentle approach reflects a deeper truth. The dreaming mind is not a machine to be programmed. It is a companion, a quiet partner, an inner storyteller that continues spinning its narratives even when you sleep. Lucidity simply brings you into the story as a conscious listener, and the more you listen with softness, the more the dream responds with clarity and depth. There is also beauty in allowing lucid dreams to unfold without shaping them. Awareness can be a form of observation rather than influence. In these dreams, you might simply walk through the dreamscape, feeling its textures, watching its colours shift, or listening to voices that echo from places you've never been. These experiences, though simple, often linger with a kind of luminous memory, like recalling a peaceful walk at dusk. As we drift forward in this journey, the idea of shaping dreams becomes less about control and more about relationship. A lucid dream is a conversation, a soft dialogue between your waking awareness and your sleeping imagination. You do not override the dream. You join it. You let it move while staying awake within it. And through that harmony, the dream becomes not just a story, but a living space where presence and creativity intertwine. Lucid dreaming can feel like stepping into a private universe, one built from your own memories, emotions, and imagination. And because it is so intimate, because everything within it is shaped by pieces of your inner world, it can feel profoundly natural to explore, to shape, and to linger in its soft landscapes. But even within this deeply personal space, there are quiet boundaries, gentle responsibilities that help keep the experience balanced and grounded. Not rules in the harsh sense, but subtle contours that protect the relationship between your waking self and the dreaming mind that creates these nightly worlds. When lucidity first arrives, many dreamers feel a sudden, uplifting sense of possibility. The dream responds to intention. Scenery shifts like turning pages in a book, and emotion flows freely. It can feel like a playground of pure imagination. But beneath that sense of freedom is something delicate. Dreams are not built from empty material. They are woven from you, your hopes, your fears, your history, your emotional echoes. In shaping the dream, you're interacting with your own subconscious, a quiet presence that carries far more than the images you see on the surface. This is why lucidity requires gentleness, not because there is danger in the dream world, but because forcefulness can strain the connection between awareness and imagination. If you push too hard, trying to manipulate the dream aggressively or demanding certain outcomes, the dream often resists. It may dissolve, become unstable, or shift abruptly. This is not punishment. It is simply the subconscious signaling that its natural rhythms have been disrupted. Just as a soft fabric can tear when pulled too sharply, dreams can lose their coherence when handled without care. Within lucid dreaming, there is also a subtle emotional boundary. While dream characters may appear as independent beings, they are formed from your own inner landscape. Their faces, voices, and actions carry traces of your memories, impressions, and emotions. Interacting with them requires the same kindness you would offer to vulnerable parts of yourself. Speaking harshly to a dream character, or trying to dominate the scene, is not an act separate from you. It echoes inward, often leaving an emotional aftertaste upon waking that you may not fully understand. In a lucid dream, compassion becomes not only a choice but a form of internal harmony. Some dreamers use lucidity as an escape, visiting the dream world to avoid stress or discomfort from waking life. While the dream world can be soothing, even healing, it is important to enter it with mindful intention. Dreams are not meant to replace reality. They are reflections, explorations, nighttime conversations with the self. Relying too heavily on them for comfort can distance you from the experiences of the day, drawing a curtain between your waking responsibilities and the inner world that supports you. It is a gentle boundary worth acknowledging. Dreaming can enrich waking life, but it cannot live in place of it. There is also a difference between guiding a dream and attempting to reshape your emotions too forcefully. If a dream brings up a difficult feeling, a wave of sadness, a hint of fear, a whisper of regret, it can be tempting to sweep it away quickly. And while lucidity allows you to soften the intensity of these feelings, it is often more meaningful to acknowledge them gently rather than erase them. Emotions that surface in dreams come from somewhere within you. They carry messages, traces of experiences that have not yet found words. Treating them with patience rather than suppression often turns the dream into a quiet space of healing. The subconscious, too, has a kind of voice in dreams. Not a literal voice, but a way of shaping imagery and emotion that reflect your inner state. In a lucid dream, you are not the sole author, you are a co-creator. The dream moves with you, but it also moves on its own. Respecting that balance, letting the dream guide you as much as you guide it, keeps the experience harmonious. Some dreamers describe this cooperation as a kind of dance, one where neither partner leads too strongly. Others describe it as listening to a friend who speaks in pictures instead of words. Ethics in the dream world become especially important when you consider that dreams often engage with memories, some recent, some deeply buried. If you revisit a memory in a lucid dream, treat it with care. You may encounter people from your past, moments you wish had unfolded differently, or feelings you haven't acknowledged fully. It can be tempting to rewrite these moments dramatically, but gentle revision often serves the heart better than forceful change. The goal is not to erase the past, but to explore your relationship with it. At its core, ethical dreaming is about honoring the inner world that creates these experiences, recognizing that the dream is not a blank canvas, but a woven tapestry made from the threads of your life. Treating that tapestry with kindness allows both waking and dreaming selves to coexist peacefully. Even in the science of sleep, researchers often emphasize that lucidity is not about control. It's about integration, a merging of awareness and imagination, a moment where the conscious self steps lightly into the subconscious and listens. And listening is, in many ways, the most ethical act within a dream. The phrase, "the dream is a partnership between the conscious and the quiet self," captures this balance beautifully. The quiet self, the part of your mind that feels deeply, remembers quietly, and creates imagery without effort, works tirelessly each night. The conscious self, when it enters the dream, brings clarity and presence. Together they weave the landscape. Together they shape the story. Neither dominates, neither retreats. They meet in the middle, in the soft glow of lucidity, where mutual respect becomes the foundation of the experience. As we continue into the next part of our journey, this gentle understanding becomes a guiding light. Dreams are not realms to conquer, they are realms to inhabit with presence, curiosity, and care. And when approached with this softness, they offer not only wonder, but also insight, healing, and a deeper connection to the quieter parts of yourself. When you wake from a dream that feels familiar, there's often a strange sensation that lingers, like hearing a melody you've forgotten but somehow know by heart. Perhaps it's a place that reappears again and again, or a feeling that repeats across months or years. Maybe it's a pattern, a symbol, or a small detail that seems to follow you from dream to dream. Recurring themes in dreams often feel mysterious, as though they are whispering something just beneath the surface. Yet these patterns are less about hidden codes and more about the rhythms of your emotional life, the quiet movements of your inner world expressed in images rather than words. Dreams speak the language of association, not logic. They draw from the emotional palette you carry throughout your days, unspoken thoughts, unfinished conversations, subtle fears, gentle hopes. When a theme repeats, it is almost never because the dream is trying to deliver a riddle that needs solving. Instead, it is because a feeling, a memory, or a tension within you keeps returning, asking for attention, reflection, or simple acknowledgement. Recurring dreams are emotional loops softened into imagery, reminders carved from the quiet corners of the mind. Take, for example, the dream of falling. Many people experience it at some point in their lives. It rarely points to a literal fear of heights. Instead, it often reflects a moment in life when something feels uncertain, when you're between decisions, between stages, or between versions of yourself. Falling in a dream is less about danger and more about the sensation of losing footing emotionally. It is your mind's way of showing you what uncertainty feels like from the inside, shaping it into a physical metaphor because the body understands falling instantly, without explanation. Flying, on the other hand, often appears when something inside you feels expansive or newly free. Flying dreams are not always triumphant. Sometimes they feel quiet, drifting, or almost meditative, like floating on warm air currents. These dreams often arrive when you've released a burden, accepted a change, or allowed yourself to imagine a future that feels lighter than your present. The dream is not predicting anything. It is reflecting the emotional movement already happening within you. Dreams of being unable to move or running in slow motion often mirror times of life when you feel stuck, not physically, but emotionally or mentally. Perhaps you wish to move forward in some area of your life, yet feel held back by uncertainty, habit, or responsibility. In the dream, this emotional tension transforms into a physical experience. Your legs feel heavy, the world moves slowly, or the path shifts beneath your feet. The dream is not scolding you. It is simply showing you how the feeling of stagnation settles in your inner landscape. Losing something precious in a dream, an object, a person, a bag, a piece of yourself, is another common pattern. These dreams appear not because you fear losing the object itself, but because something in your waking life feels unanchored or undefined. You might be searching for clarity, trying to understand where you stand in a situation, or reconciling a part of your identity that has shifted. The lost object is not the message, the feeling of searching is. The difference between personal symbolism and universal symbolism lies in the history you bring into the dream. Water, for example, often appears across cultures as a symbol of emotion, but the meaning it carries is shaped by your own relationship with water. If the ocean comforts you, dreaming of waves might be soothing. But if deep water unsettles you, waves might reflect emotional currents that feel overwhelming. The dream uses symbols that resonate with your life, not with a dictionary. This is why rigid dream interpretations often feel hollow or unhelpful. Dreams do not follow a universal codebook. They speak the language of your experiences, your memories, and your emotional associations. A staircase might symbolize opportunity for one person and anxiety for another. A locked door might represent privacy, frustration, or even excitement depending on the dreamer. Dreams adapt their symbolism to the emotional nuances you carry. Recurring dreams tend to appear when something in your emotional life has not yet reached its resting place. They may return night after night, or every few months, or only during specific seasons of your life. When the underlying emotion finds resolution, whether through change, acceptance, or understanding, the recurring dream often fades on its own. Not because the dream has been solved, but because the feeling that gave rise to it has shifted. Sometimes, recurring themes act as guideposts. They remind you that something within you is requesting attention, gently tapping on the door of awareness. You might notice, for instance, that certain dreams appear during times of stress, or transitions, or anticipation. You might find that dreams of movement appear during moments of growth, while dreams of searching arrive when you are trying to understand your place in the world. These patterns are not warnings, they are reflections, mirrors held up by the sleeping mind. There are also recurring dreams that offer comfort, a childhood home reappearing during difficult times, a familiar landscape rising during moments of uncertainty, a dream of travelling through the same quiet forest, or walking along a familiar shoreline. These patterns act like emotional anchors, reminding you of safety, continuity, or emotional grounding even when life feels unpredictable. As you begin to pay gentle attention to these recurring themes, not analysing them harshly, but simply noticing their presence, the dream world becomes less mysterious and more intimate. You begin to understand that your dreams are not trying to hide anything from you. They're trying to reveal what your waking self may not always have time to notice. They are the mind's way of processing feelings that don't always reach the surface during the day. By approaching these patterns with curiosity rather than urgency, you invite a deeper relationship with your inner world. Not a combative one, not a decoding exercise, but a quiet understanding. Dreams do not rush you, they wait. And when something in your emotional life shifts, the dreams shift too. As we continue this gentle journey, the meaning of dreams becomes less about interpretation and more about connection, about recognizing how your inner world speaks in images, shapes, and recurring scenes. And in paying attention, even softly, you build a bridge between your waking life and the deeper currents that move quietly beneath it. There is a quiet kind of magic in waking from a dream and noticing the traces it has left behind. An image that hovers just out of reach, a feeling lodged somewhere beneath the ribs, a sentence that repeats itself without fully forming. Most dreams fade quickly, slipping away the moment the day's light begins to gather, but some linger long enough for you to touch them, And if you choose to, you can gather these soft fleeting threads and place them gently onto a page. This simple act, writing down even the smallest hint of a dream, is the heart of dream journaling. It is not a task or an analysis, but a quiet conversation between you and your inner world. Dream journaling is often misunderstood. Many people imagine it as a detailed recording of every dream, every symbol, every character. But in truth, the practice can be far simpler. Writing down a dream does not require precision or completeness. It asks only for your presence. Some entries may be full scenes. Others may be a single sentence. Some may be a colour, a moment, or even just a feeling. The point is not the length or the detail, but the act of noticing, of letting the dream know that you saw it. When you write about a dream, even briefly, you strengthen a bridge between your waking mind and your dreaming self. This bridge is delicate at first, like a thread pulled from a cocoon, but over time it becomes stronger. The dreaming mind begins to send its images forward more clearly. The details that once evaporated now linger a little longer. Memories of dreams that once vanished at sunrise become easier to carry with you into the day. This happens not through effort, but through the soft rhythm of attention. Imagine keeping a dream journal as collecting postcards from the inner worlds you visit every night. Some postcards might show sweeping landscapes, a wide field under a violet sky, a staircase twisting into a place that has no map, a city that feels both familiar and impossible. Others might be close-ups, a single flower that glows faintly, a bird perched on a window, a hallway that opens into light. And some postcards may not show images at all, but moods, calmness, longing, curiosity. Each postcard reveals a small piece of the architecture of your inner night. There is also a gentle psychological truth behind journaling. When you take a moment to write down your dreams, you're telling your mind that its nighttime wandering matters, that the stories it creates in silence deserve attention. The mind responds to this acknowledgement. It begins to gather dreams more carefully, as if preparing them for you. The boundary between dreaming and waking becomes slightly more porous, allowing awareness to pass through more easily. This is why people who keep dream journals often experience lucid dreams more frequently. The mind has learned to pay attention in both directions. Dream journaling also reveals patterns that would otherwise go unnoticed. You might discover that certain themes appear during stressful weeks, or that particular emotions rise during calm periods. You might find that people from your past visit you when something in your present echoes old feelings, or that symbolic places, forests, oceans, hallways, seem to return during times of transition. These patterns are not puzzles to solve, but invitations to understand yourself more gently. The act of writing also slows you down. In a world that moves quickly, dream journaling becomes a moment of stillness, a moment where you sit with yourself without expectation and simply record what your inner world offered you. This small pause allows emotions to surface in quiet ways. Sometimes the process of writing reveals more than the dream itself. The words you choose, the associations that arise, the feelings that awaken as you describe the dream, they all offer glimpses into your subconscious, soft clues about what lingers beneath your waking thoughts. If you worry that you cannot remember your dreams well enough to journal, you are not alone. Memory upon waking can be fragile, as though the dream were made of smoke, but even this can be part of the practice. Instead of waiting for a complete dream to appear, you might write down the faintest detail you remember, perhaps a colour like deep blue, or a shape like a doorway, or a single word like running or waiting. These fragments are enough. Over time, fragments become scenes and scenes become stories. For those who prefer not to write full sentences, sketches can serve the same purpose. A simple drawing, a line suggesting a horizon, a circle for the moon, the outline of a room, can hold the emotional essence of a dream in ways that words sometimes cannot. You do not have to be an artist, you only have to notice. There is also the question of interpretation. Should dreams be analysed, decoded, or explained? Journaling does not require any of this. Interpretation can be a gentle extension of journaling if it feels right, but it is never necessary. The value of journaling lies in attention, not in solving. If patterns reveal themselves naturally, let them. If they remain mysterious, let them remain so. The subconscious reveals things at its own pace. Some people worry that recording dreams may intensify them or blur the line between waking and dreaming, but in practice, journaling tends to create a sense of grounding. By writing a dream down, you place it gently into the world of waking experience. You acknowledge it without letting it dominate your day. This softens its emotional weight. Even troubling dreams often lose their intensity once translated into words or shapes. Dream journaling can also become a ritual of self-care, a moment in the morning or evening where you reflect softly on the landscapes you've walked through during the night. You might pair it with a cup of warm tea, or sit near a window, or take a few slow breaths before writing. Rituals like these create a container for the dream experience, transforming it into something soothing and intentional. As we continue this journey into the inner world of dreams, journaling becomes one of the most intimate ways of listening to yourself. Not the self you show to others, or the self shaped by your responsibilities, but the deeper self, the one who speaks in symbols and colours, in echoes and emotions. Your dream journal becomes a quiet archive of that voice, a place where the night leaves messages for the morning. In the quiet hours of the night, dreams unfold with the softness of drifting mist, shifting as gently as breath, carrying memories and emotions in ways too subtle for daylight to fully unravel. For most of human history, dreams belonged entirely to the private world within each person, unreachable and unmeasurable. But in recent years, something new has begun to appear at the edge of this inner landscape. Tools, systems, and gentle technologies that attempt to listen to the patterns of dreaming minds. They do not decode dreams like puzzles, nor do they see the images directly. Instead, they observe from a respectful distance, trying to notice connections, rhythms, and emotional currents that might otherwise stay hidden. This is the meeting place between dreams and artificial intelligence, a quiet frontier, still forming, still uncertain, but full of possibility. Many of these tools begin with something simple, the words we use to describe our dreams. When people write in dream journals or share their dreams with others, they often describe their experiences using stories, symbols, and emotions. AI systems trained to recognize patterns within language can gently cluster these descriptions, finding similarities, emotional tones, or recurring motifs across time. For example, if someone's dreams often include water, these tools may note the variations: calm water during peaceful weeks, stormy waves during stressful periods, still pools during times of reflection. The technology does not claim to know what the water means. It simply whispers, "I've noticed this pattern," offering the dreamer a chance to explore that pattern more deeply on their own. Some AI tools examine the structure of dream narratives, the way scenes shift, the pacing of emotional turns, the presence of movement or stillness. These tools do not analyze the dream in a rigid or mechanical way. Instead, they behave more like quiet observers, noticing the shape of a dream the way someone might notice the shape of a melody. They can help highlight moments of emotional intensity, moments of uncertainty, or moments where themes repeat across months. For dreamers who journal regularly, these subtle reflections can feel like holding a lantern up to the inner night, not to illuminate it harshly, but to see its shapes a little more clearly. There are also emerging technologies that attempt to match dream reports with broader emotional trends. For example, by tracking the tone of the words you use, whether the language feels heavy, hopeful, restless, or calm, AI can create gentle maps of your emotional seasons. Over time, you might begin to notice how your dreams shift with changes in your waking life. When new responsibilities appear, when relationships evolve, when personal growth quietly unfolds. These emotional maps are not diagnoses, they are simply reflections, like the way water mirrors the shape of the sky. Some researchers explore the possibility of identifying dream stages through non-invasive signals, patterns in breathing, movement, or faint electrical rhythms on the surface of the skin. AI helps interpret these signals, offering a softer and more intuitive understanding of when dream sleep may be happening. This can help people understand their sleep cycles, recognize when dreams tend to be most vivid, or see how their nights change over time. Again, the purpose is not control, but awareness. With these possibilities, however, come questions, gentle but important ones. Dreams are some of the most intimate expressions of the self. They reveal emotions that may not be spoken aloud, memories that linger beneath the surface, and symbolic landscapes shaped by deeply personal associations. When machines begin to analyze or reflect on these dreams, even in supportive ways, the question of privacy arises naturally. Who sees these dream journal entries? Where does the information go? How is it used? These questions deserve the same tenderness and care we give to dreams themselves. The safest approach is to think of AI as a companion, not an interpreter. A tool that helps you notice patterns, but never tells you what your dream should mean. Dreams speak in the language of your inner world, and only you can understand their nuance fully. AI can highlight a trend, but it cannot feel the emotion beneath it. It can cluster themes, but it cannot know the memories shaping them. The value of these tools lies not in replacing intuition or psychological insight, but in supporting gentle self-awareness. Another question appearing on the horizon is whether AI could one day help people share their dreams in new ways, not by reading images from the mind, but by translating dream reports into visual representations. Some early experiments attempt to generate artwork inspired by dream descriptions, turning words into abstract or symbolic images. These tools do not recreate the dream itself. Instead, they offer a reflection, a visual interpretation shaped by the person describing the dream. For some dreamers, this becomes another form of journaling, a way of creating a small piece of art from the night's wandering. At the same time, it is important to approach these tools with a calm heart. Technology evolves quickly, sometimes faster than our emotional understanding of it. While it is tempting to imagine a future where dreams are captured and played back like films, the reality remains far from this. And perhaps that distance is a blessing. Dreams are meant to remain soft, personal, and fluid, not pinned down, not reduced to diagrams. They're conversations between the self and the deeper self, not data points to be solved. The true promise of AI in the realm of dreams may lie not in analysis, but in reflection, helping people see patterns that support emotional growth, encouraging more mindful sleep habits, offering gentle cues rather than hard conclusions. The dreamer remains the center of the experience. The dreamer remains the interpreter. The dream remains a private world that technology can observe from afar but never enter fully. As you reflect on this new frontier, it becomes clear that the relationship between dreams and machines is not one of intrusion, but of possibility, if approached with care. AI can sit at the edge of the dream world holding a small lamp, illuminating patterns without stepping into the dream itself. It can listen without assuming, notice without judging, And in this way, technology becomes not a threat to the mystery of dreams, but a quiet companion, one that supports self-understanding while respecting the delicate boundaries of the sleeping mind. There is a quiet curiosity shared by scientists, dreamers, writers, and wanderers of the night. What if dreams could be shaped gently before they begin? What if the soft landscapes that rise during sleep could be guided, not controlled, but nudged toward themes that help with learning, healing, or reflection? This question leads us into the realm of dream incubation, a gentle field of study exploring how thoughts, sounds, or intentions planted before sleep can influence the direction a dream takes. Not with force and not with certainty, but with something much softer, like placing a seed in the soil and trusting the night to do the rest. Dream incubation is far from new. Ancient cultures practiced it thousands of years ago, leaving offerings, sleeping in sacred temples, or whispering quiet requests before bed. Today, science approaches the idea with more careful language, but the core concept remains the same. The mind is suggestible at the moment it drifts into sleep, and the themes held lightly in the imagination can become part of the dream that follows. Modern researchers, including teams at places like MIT, explore dream incubation by observing how small cues, soft sounds, gentle scents, or simple phrases repeated before sleep can influence the emotional tone or imagery of early dream cycles. These cues are never loud, never abrupt. They're subtle, like footsteps muffled in snow, offering the dreaming mind a direction without demanding anything from it. Imagine, for example, going to sleep after thinking about a quiet forest. You picture the trees, the soft light, the earthy scent. You don't force the image, you simply hold it gently, like a photograph resting in your hands. Studies suggest that the mind may carry this image into the beginning of sleep, allowing the dream to start on a similar path. You might find yourself walking among trees, or simply feeling the calmness a forest brings. The dream shapes itself around the seed you placed, though it often reshapes the details into something uniquely its own. Sound cues can work similarly, when used carefully during the early stages of sleep before dreams fully deepen. A single word, a soft melody, or even the sound of falling rain can weave itself into the dream. The mind receives the cue like a whisper passing through an open window, integrating it into its unfolding story. One moment you're drifting in the vague beginnings of dream imagery, and the next you find yourself wandering through a landscape that echoes the sound. If the cue is about learning, such as recalling a melody or reviewing a language phrase, the mind may fold that familiar shape into its dreamlike processing, not as a test, but as a gentle rehearsal. Some early experiments suggest that dream incubation may help reinforce memories, not in the strict academic sense of studying formulas or lists, but in the softer sense of familiarity. If you practice a skill during the day, then hold it lightly in mind before bed, your dreams might revisit it. This revisiting can strengthen the memory, the way walking a path again makes the soil more familiar under your feet. Dreams do not teach in the way a classroom teaches. They teach more like rivers shaping stones, slowly, indirectly, in subtle currents. There's also the idea of healing dreams incubated to help process emotions or reflect on inner questions. These do not replace therapy or waking exploration. Instead, they offer emotional spaces that can feel safe and symbolic. Writing down a feeling before bed, or repeating a gentle question like, "What is my heart trying to tell me?" can sometimes guide dreams towards scenes that echo unresolved emotions. The dream does not answer literally. It responds with mood, with imagery, with movement. A closed door may appear, A winding path may stretch before you. A warm light might glow at the end of a corridor. The meaning is not fixed, but the emotional journey often feels meaningful. Some dreamers use incubation to navigate their creativity. Artists imagine a shape they want to explore. Writers hold a story fragment in their mind. Musicians hum a melody softly before sleep. The subconscious often responds by offering pieces of imagery, unexpected connections, or emotional tones that enrich their waking work. The dreaming mind creates without the constraints of structure, making incubation a quiet partner to creativity. But even with all its potential, dream incubation must be approached with softness. The subconscious does not respond well to pressure. If you try too hard, if you clutch the idea tightly or demand a specific outcome, the dream often slips in a different direction. The mind needs space to wander. Incubation works best when the intention is gentle, like a suggestion offered to a friend rather than an instruction given to a machine. There are also ethical questions surrounding dream incubation, when approached as technology rather than personal practice. If dreams can be influenced with cues, even subtle ones, how do we ensure those cues remain in the dreamer's control? What happens when external systems or devices attempt to guide dreams towards certain emotions or ideas? These questions linger in the background of dream research, reminding us that the dream world must remain a private sanctuary, one where the dreamer decides what enters and what stays at the threshold. For now, dream incubation remains a personal, introspective art, a way of shaping the night with gentle intention. If you hold a thought softly as you drift asleep, the mind may take it as an invitation, not as command, but as direction to explore. Whether the dream leads you deeper into memory, offers you comfort, or simply creates imagery that feels connected to the seed you planted, the experience becomes a dialogue between your waking self and your sleeping imagination. As we approach the final stretch of this journey, dream incubation reminds us of something profound. Even in sleep, you remain an active participant in the story your mind creates. You're not a passenger drifting through darkness. You're a quiet collaborator, offering your inner world little sparks of intention and watching how they glow. As the long arc of night begins to fade and the first hints of morning lie somewhere beyond the horizon, your dreams linger in a quiet space between worlds. They are still close enough to feel, yet distant enough that their edges have begun to soften. In this drifting moment, it becomes easier to see that dreaming is not something that simply happens to you. It is something you participate in, shaping it with your experiences, your emotions, your memories, and even your intentions. And as dream science continues to evolve, you remain at the center of this unfolding story. You're both observer and architect, both traveler and cartographer of your own inner landscape. To understand your role in the future of dream science, it helps to return to a simple truth. Dreams are deeply personal. They arise from the quiet reservoirs of your mind, shaped by who you are, what you've lived, and where your emotional currents drift. Even as researchers develop new tools to understand sleep more clearly, nothing can replace the intimacy of your own reflections. You are the one who walks through your dreamscapes each night. You are the one who senses the textures of those worlds and feels the emotional truths woven into them. No machine, no instrument, no sensor can experience what you experience in dreams. They can only observe from afar what you bring to your dreams: mindfulness, emotional literacy, gentle curiosity, matters. These qualities shape not only how you dream, but how you interpret, reflect on, and grow from the dreams you have. Mindfulness, for example, has a subtle way of flowing into the dream world. When you spend your waking hours paying attention to the small details, the sound of your breathing, the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the sensation of your steps. You cultivate an awareness that naturally drifts into your dreams. This awareness may manifest as clearer dream recall, more vivid imagery, or the soft beginnings of lucidity. In many ways, mindfulness is not just a waking practice. It becomes a bridge that connects the daylight mind with the dreaming mind. Dream journaling too has a place in the future of dream science, not as a clinical procedure, but as a personal ritual that supports self-understanding. By writing down dreams, even a fragment, you contribute to a long conversation with your subconscious. Over time, patterns emerge, emotional cycles become visible, and themes reveal themselves gently. This slow accumulation of insight becomes a kind of map, a record of the inner landscapes you've travelled through, the emotional seasons you've lived, and the symbols that have followed you over years. In this way, your dream journal becomes a document of personal evolution, reflecting how you've changed and how your inner world has unfolded. Communities built around dream sharing also have a place in the future, not for interpretation in the rigid sense, but for connection. When people share dreams in safe, supportive settings, something interesting happens. Not only do they feel more connected to one another, but they also gain new perspectives on their own dream patterns. Hearing someone describe a recurring dream of standing at the edge of a forest or wandering through a glowing hallway can spark memories of your own symbolic places. It reminds you that while dreams are personal, the emotions beneath them often resonate across many lives. These communities become gentle mirrors, reflecting shared human experience in unique dream languages. As technology becomes more involved in sleep research, your role remains grounded in choice. You decide what dream tools feel helpful and which feel intrusive. You decide what data to share and what to keep private. You decide whether to explore dream incubation, lucid dreaming, journaling, or simply letting dreams move as they wish. Technology may offer insights into sleep cycles or emotional trends, but it cannot tell you what meaning a dream holds. That meaning arises from your own lived experiences, your memories, and your inner wisdom. The ethics of future dream technology revolve almost entirely around consent, privacy, and personal boundaries. Dreams hold some of the most intimate parts of who you are. Fragments of identity, buried emotions, unspoken desires, unresolved fears. Any future tool that touches dreams must respect these boundaries. You, as the dreamer, become the guardian of your inner world, the one who decides how deeply technology may interact with the quiet spaces of your mind. Approached with care, these tools can become companions rather than intruders, gentle observers that help you understand yourself more deeply without crossing lines you do not wish to cross. At the horizon of dream science lies a simple but profound idea. Sleep is not merely a period of unconsciousness. It is an active, creative, emotionally rich state in which your mind explores itself. And as research advances, we may discover more ways to work with dreams, not to control them, but to support emotional healing, strengthen memory, nurture creativity, or simply appreciate the beauty of the inner night. But no matter how far dream science evolves, the most meaningful discoveries will always arise from your own relationship with your dreams. You are the one who notices how a recurring symbol changes over time. You are the one who feels the emotional tone of a dream. You are the one who recognizes when a dream offers comfort or reveals something restless beneath the surface. You are the one who returns each night to landscapes built from your own depths. Dreaming is an ancient and intimate process, older than language, older than history, older than the stories humanity tells itself. It is a quiet thread that connects you with every person who has ever closed their eyes and drifted into the soft unknown of sleep. And as you continue your own journey into dream understanding, you become part of the future of this exploration, not as a subject being studied, but as a co-researcher, a storyteller, and a keeper of your own inner worlds. As you consider this role, a sense of gentle empowerment may rise, because even in sleep, you're participating in a larger conversation between science and the self, between imagination and observation, between the mysteries of the night and the clarity of the day. And in that conversation, you are not passive. You are central. Every night, you touch a universe built from your own quiet depths. And every dream brings you closer to yourself, not through answers, but through presence, not through control, but through awareness, not through certainty, but through wonder.